Right, let's continue our interrogation of the issues surrounding PDS and this contract, which we are being told government suspects was entered into after fraudulent activity was conducted by PDS. So we learned a lot more about the chronology of events yesterday, but there are now more questions than answers. Let's speak to Pauline Anaman. She's the head of policy unit at ASEP. And let's see if we can perhaps declutter the issues. Pauline, very good to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Yeah.
Right. So let's get to it. Yesterday, we learned that, in fact, quite a lot happened behind the scenes. We learned more about the money trail that PDS actually, according to documentation, paid CalBank to secure this guarantee for them. And it turns out that after Al-Qut, just about 15 days ago, informed government that, well, there is no way such security could have been provided by them, since they don't even offer such a product, and the person who allegedly signed the document is not authorized to do so. After hearing that 15 days ago, we now learn that just yesterday, or the day before, I believe, there was a letter from Al-Qut to a company called Joe Australia Insurance, which was supposed to be the broker between the CalBank and Dunwell Insurance and Al-Qut. There was a letter from Al-Qut to them saying, we're cancelling your cover because you haven't paid your premium. A bit of confusion there. I don't know what ASEP makes of this and whether it affects your position now.
Well, so the conflicting information that is coming up clearly shows that the system is really confused about everything. And when there's a contract, okay, what must be very clear is the intention of the parties. As long as the intentions of the parties cannot be clarified, there is no contract. So with this whole issue about the guarantee, as long as there is no clarity about the obligations of what has been agreed upon in the first place and the obligations of the various parties involved, then as far as we are concerned and from a contract law point of view, there is no clarity, and therefore no conclusion can be made as to whether or not there is a guarantee.
Right. So, okay, I guess what you're saying is that in the absence of a clear narrative, uncontradicted, we cannot assume that there is a guarantee, exactly, even if PDS can prove that they paid money for one.
Exactly. So right now, that is why there is an investigation process ongoing. So we suggest that we leave this whole process. We don't want to make hasty conclusions now. All we know is that, as we have discussed several times, the bond was procured fraudulently, fair enough, and Al-Qut has denied that they entered into an insurance bond with PDS. That has been dealt with right now. Now, what is coming up is that Al-Qut is now saying certain payments have not been made to them. And so you can see that there are two conflicting situations, and it is only this investigation that can unravel things to make things clearer to everyone. So we do not want to hasten ourselves in making any conclusions at this moment.
Right.
But what our position still stands, that there's a problem with the guarantee, and clearly so, given the circumstances we find ourselves.
All right. Now, let's look at two things. First of all, let's look at what government has said they're going to do about it regarding this investigation, which will last 30 days. And then we'll look at what the minority is also calling for. Let's start with government. So, Information Minister says that there will be a committee investigating this. That committee will have security agencies represented. It'll have insurance experts. And then it will have the Energy Ministry, the Finance Ministry, and MEDA. Now, ASEP called for a probe, but that probe was to actually look at the roles that the ministries and MEDA may have played in bringing us to this point. So, to your mind, is this not a situation where they will be investigating themselves?
Yeah, so what we are proposing is that whatever investigation is going on should exclude the people who it shouldn't involve people who are directly involved in this field. Those people themselves must be investigated, right? So we have to make sure that nobody who is allegedly culpable is involved in this, is actively involved in this investigative process. So we are asking for a very independent investigation, and that will mean the people who constitute the investigation team must be people who have never been involved in this process and who are very objective and professional.
So when you say nobody, are you referring to no institution or no individual involved?
So we are looking at individuals because this is an issue involving the government of Ghana, right? And the government of Ghana works with institutions. And so the relevant institutions must be represented in this whole investigation. But we already have existing institutions that can handle this kind of investigation, like IOCO and the Office of the Special Prosecutor and all those things. So we have to put together people from independent institutions set up by Act of Parliament and maybe the Constitution. And also we must ensure that the fundamental thing is to ensure that people who were directly involved in this arrangement, in bringing together the procurement process and ensuring it to its conclusion, should not be involved. The individual should not be involved in this whole investigation. They should rather be investigated.
Right.
But remember that as this is an issue involving a whole country, and we cannot say that the Ministry of Finance should not investigate this matter. We can't say that because this is clearly a finance issue, and the Ministry of Finance is responsible for finances of the country, right? But what we are saying is that there need not to be individuals who will be conflicted in this whole process of investigation.
Right. So let me create a scenario here, and this is just an example. Okay. So if, for instance, you educated us yesterday on the different kinds of misrepresentation, from the criminal to the negligent to the
innocent,
to the innocent. So let me ask you this: if this investigation starts to uncover that, for example, there was negligent misrepresentation by, say, MIDA, or by the Finance Ministry, or by the Energy Ministry, the ministers, would it not create a conflict, the fact that these ministries are represented on the body that is doing the investigation? In fact, will the body even be focusing its investigation on these institutions from where they came, or is it likely to affect the direction of the investigation, as in would it steer it away from these particular institutions who you claim should also be investigated?
Okay, so your question falls on its head because the misrepresentation I discussed yesterday was in relation to PDS and its relationship with output and not the ministry. We were looking at who misrepresented the insurance bond. The issue at hand is about an insurance bond which has been fraudulently procured. And we are looking at who should be blamed for that misrepresentation, right? And we mentioned that between output and PDS, somebody must be responsible. And I further mentioned that if PDS is the one we are looking at to be responsible, we have to understand the misrepresentation within those three variances: innocent, fraudulent, and negligent, because the implications are different for each. So the misrepresentation has got nothing to do with the ministry or MIDA, because they didn't procure the allegedly fraudulently procured insurance bond.
But they did have a role to play in due diligence. So are you saying it's impossible for them to also have been, for example, negligent in the sense that they didn't check the documentation?
MIDA owes a duty, MIDA IFC owes a duty to the state to be vigilant. I mentioned that despite the argument they might make that the transaction was made in good faith and that they presume that the document presented to them was regular. I mean, I moved on to say that these institutions, MIDA and IFC, who were working on behalf of the state, should have gone a step further to ensure that the proper due diligence was done, so that a fundamental document as the insurance bond will be deemed or will be established to be valid right from the beginning. So they had a responsibility. That is why I'm saying that as the investigation is going on, all persons involved from the start who procured this whole PDS arrangement should not be called on to advise or to support this investigation unless there is the need for an evidence.
All right,
but that does not mean that the state as a country should not use its machinery to undertake the investigation.
Yes, I'm with you. But what I'm saying is, should these particular bodies that you are calling for investigation into, should they be represented on the investigation team? Is that not a conflict of interest?
So I made also the point that we already have institutions in Ghana that can do the work, like the Special Prosecutor and IOCO. So those are options available to government.
All right. Let's talk about another thing that came up yesterday. The Information Minister said that actually government should deserves the praise, for having spotted this anomaly after about 4 or 5 different and subsequent levels of due diligence. And they're saying it is because of the effort of government that this was uncovered. How does ASEP feel about that?
So from yesterday's discussion, we discussed this, and I mentioned that government is doing what it ought to do. This is normal, and so nobody deserves. I don't see where the praise should be coming from. I don't see why there should be any praise. They are doing exactly what they are supposed to do as a government. They already failed us from the beginning. So rectifying the situation is not anything out of the blue that we should do.
But they are not acknowledging that they failed us. They are saying that actually they solved the problem, not that they caused it. That's what the Information Minister is saying.
Yeah, but we all know that they are doing what they have to do. So they can be tickling themselves about their achievements. Nobody really sees that. So.
All right. Now let's touch on what the minority is also calling for. They say simply abrogate the contract. Because they believe that actually this contract is simply an opportunity for certain members of the ruling party to make money, and that something has gone sour, and that is why we are now seeing all of these revelations coming up. So abrogate the thing so that there is no opportunity for any shenanigans, and then let's just start afresh. Do you think that's a healthy way forward?
So that is a different claim from the issue about the subject matter of the investigation. Okay, so if minority is saying that there are people benefiting, that is a different issue from the very issue we are discussing, for which there is the likelihood of an abrogation. What is before us is a fraudulent document, and we have already established that fraudulent misrepresentation is an automatic defense. It's automatic for a party who is innocent to a transaction to repudiate the agreement.
Right.
And also it is an automatic defense against specific performance if the other party goes to court to order for specific performance. So if this whole investigation establishes that, and remember also that I mentioned that the different kinds of misrepresentation has different implications. So if it is established that there was fraudulent misrepresentation, then we have the right as a country to abrogate the contract. But this whole thing is different from, so this issue is different from minorities' argument that there are people benefiting from the contract and therefore it must be abrogated. That is a complete different issue. And for that, I don't have evidence or facts to speak to. So if minority wants it to be abrogated based on that argument, then they can take the issue to court and have it set aside.
All right, Pauline Anneman, Head of Policy Unit at ASEP, I want to thank you very much for your time with us this morning. We appreciate it. Yeah, and that's where we're going to leave that matter. But you know what's coming up now, right? Dear AM, we're going to be asking some very interesting questions. Once you hear the story of this viewer who has written to us, she is in a fix, but maybe you can help. Stay tuned.